I got arrested on my own front porch for refusing to obey a court order that didn't exist. They brought a demolition crew, a sheriff's deputy with a grin, and my neighbor's brother in uniform, and I let it happen. Sounds insane, right? Stick with me. There's a reason I smiled while they cuffed me. 7 years ago, I bought a patch of land just outside a gated neighborhood, palms and the brochure rules in the bloodstream. Quiet, inconvenient, and legally clean, 3 rare things to find together near the coast. My lot touched their fence, sure, but it didn't belong to their covenants. I checked title easements plats 6 separate times. Old habits from 18 years prosecuting cases don't die easy. I read the fine print like a man reading headlines that might blow up in his face. I built something they hated before it had walls. Flat roof, clean lines, solar panels tipped toward the marsh instead of the street concrete, instead of the faux colonial brick they like to call traditional. It didn't kneel. That was the offense. She showed up on my driveway while my guys were unloading Pearl's Blazer. That particular smile, that's all teeth and patience. You know that design is going to affect surrounding property values, she said. No hello, no how are you, just that little diplomatic blister. I told her calmly, my land's outside your HOA, county approved, permits in order. She nodded like I'd explained how crayons work, then asked who my builder was, whether I planned a fence, if I'd consider community standards. That last phrase hung in the air like a legal threat wrapped in a casserole. Everyone around here is part of something, she said, laughing that thin laugh. You'll see. And she made sure I did. Noise complaints when I wasn't home, anonymous tips about unpermitted work after everything was finished, letters from some legal committee warning me about bylaws I'd never agreed to. They tried the low-cost, low-risk stuff. First whispers, rumors, a woman at the grocery asking if I'd been forced out of a job. Cheap smear campaigns are the art of intimidation. They cost less than lawsuits and feel cleaner than violence. I documented everything. Dates, names, badge numbers, letters, voicemails, camera footage. I didn't go to them. I watched them go to me. People like Cheryl, let's call her Cheryl, don't stop when you push. They stop when they make a mistake big enough to swallow them. 2 years in, she came with an offer. Developer interest, strategic parcel growth. She named a number that was generous until you did the math. I said no. 6 months later, higher number, less charm. No again. Third time, she leaned across my kitchen table and said, "This development is happening, with you or without you." That was the moment the tone changed. Pressure turns from polite to mechanical. Patrol cars started showing up late at night responding to calls about suspicious activity, 14 visits in 2 years, different officers, same dull disappointment that they hadn't caught me doing anything worth writing up. Once an officer asked if I was storing weapons. Another time they claimed a neighbor reported shouting. I live alone. I don't shout. For a while it was a slow leak, then it got surgical. Thursday, 10 a.m. I'm working on a file when the tires tell me they're here. Not one vehicle, 3. One with the HOA logo, a county cruiser, and a white pickup with guys in neon vests. I stepped outside with a coffee I didn't mean to drink. Cheryl walked up the gravel like she owned the dirt under her heels, flanked by a contractor and her brother, Sergeant Roy, uniform, mirrored sunglasses, a smirk too wide for the moment. "Mr. Green," she said sweetly, "we have an official notice for you today." She handed a manila folder. Emergency demolition order, unsafe structure, county seal-typed case number, a judge's signature. No hearing notice. No inspector had ever been on my property. The inspection report listed electrical hazards, foundation instability, and non-compliant solar arrays. Inspector named Jeremy Talcott. I knew the name, retired, moved away 3 years earlier. Roy stepped forward, one hand resting casual on his belt. "We don't have time for debate," he said. "Orders signed. You can leave peacefully or I'll arrest you for obstruction and interference." I folded the paper slowly, slid it inside my jacket. "I'll stay right here," I said. Click. Cold metal. I didn't resist. That mattered. If I'd fought, they would have backed off, regrouped, come back with cleaner paperwork. I wanted them to overplay. I wanted the record to be messy for them. They unloaded tools not to tear my house down, too loud, too public, but enough to mark ground bolt cutters, stakes, measuring gear. They began chipping at the periphery, removing a mailbox, prying at a fence post. Psychological playbook, destabilize, humiliate, mark territory. My watch blinked red. Cameras had been running since I saw them turn the corner. Doorbell cam, interior feeds. Motion triggered 4K. Every word, every move, audio and timestamp. Not just to the cloud, I'd backed everything up. 2 encrypted SSDs, and a tamper-proof flash drive, the latter locked in a safety deposit box downtown under a trust I set up years ago. Cheryl might have eyes in the sheriff's office, but she sure as hell didn't have the vault combo. They drove me to the county station. No one asked for paperwork. No one blinked. Closed system behavior. Roy handed over a single page and read charges off like a fast food menu: obstruction of justice, interfering with a court-ordered action, refusing a lawful directive. No mention of a warrant, no mention of a hearing, no mention that I stood on my own property outside their authority. They processed me. And then this part is important. They held me 6 hours without a phone call. 2 hours is the reasonable limit for access. 6 is intentional. In that window, they could do damage, they could fabricate a narrative, they could scrub digital traces. I sat in a concrete cell that smelled faintly of bleach and sweat and kept my breathing exact. I paced once every 20 minutes to keep the blood moving and let them dig. I could have made noise-demanded counsel-quoted statutes. That would have created paperwork that cleaned things up for them. Instead, I waited, because what I needed was them to be confident reckless. People like Cheryl stop when they get caught, not when they get scared. Finally, when they let me make a call, I dialed Denise. Denise had been my intern when she was fresh-faced and bright. She'd moved up the ranks and actually learned how to use federal power without shooting herself in the foot. "Marshal, what the hell happened?" she said, breathless. I told her arrested, forged demolition order, held 6 hours, property being tampered with. Silence on the line, then a click. "Don't move a thing," she said. "I'll run it." An hour and 16 minutes later, they opened my cell and said, "You're cleared for release." No apology, no explanation. Outside, a U.S. Marshal waited. We drove back and the scene looked like a crime scene. Yellow tape federal agents photographing the broken fence, the twisted mailbox, the solar panel. One guy had tried to rip off wires exposed like raw nerves. Denise met me with a folder, a signed affidavit from the judge saying he never signed the order. County records showing the inspector's report didn't exist. The inspector's name, retired license traced to a pest control company 2 counties over. "This isn't just a bad forgery," she said. "It's coordinated." They found the demolition order draft in Cheryl's office, metadata timestamped late the night before open under her login. A folder labeled expansion included plans and an email from a development firm offering millions for the combined parcels contingent on Phase 2 completion. Stapled to one of those emails, a note that read, "Marshall Green is the last obstacle. Roy says he'll handle it." When they pulled Cheryl and Roy, the house of cards collapsed fast. Roy tried to say he was following orders. Contractors flipped texts, cash payments, instructions to make it look like prep work. One of them handed over a message, "Panels can go." That'll shake him. $2,000 each. That text became Exhibit A. The trial unfolded like a short, ugly novel. Roy cut a plea, 8 years forfeited pension, lifetime ban from law enforcement, and his cooperation opened more doors. Cheryl fought longer, but her tablet and desktop told the truth: drafts of forged orders, a rubber stamp of a judge's seal, purchased online receipts for cash payments, a journal entry that read, "It has to happen this month, no more delays." She was convicted. 6 years. Assets frozen. Her condo sold at auction. The HOA dissolved under federal oversight after a forensic audit uncovered missing funds and a culture of silence. The chief who signed off on suspicious reports 3 years in for negligence. 4 families who'd been pressured to sell got settlements. 1 got their property back. When the legal dust settled, they paid restitution. I got a check enough to repair what was broken and then some. But the real payoff wasn't money. It was the quiet neighbors who had lived in fear started talking. Emails came from people I'd never met saying, "We were cowards. You weren't." That one line, someone admitting they'd been afraid, meant more than any court order. A year later, my house looked like it had before, only quieter. Solar panels, new and snug mailbox, custom-built fence, rebuilt stronger. In the corner where they tore the gate down, I made a small rock garden, pale river stones, a Japanese maple, and a square granite slab. Etched on it simple words, "Here lies the end of the Baxter Empire, 2024. People slow down. Walkers pause. Someone takes a picture, then keeps walking." The HOA restructured itself, residents running things without dues or boardmen playing judge. Denise came by one afternoon with a bottle of bourbon like an offering. We sat on the porch, the wind through the trees, insects humming like a tired chorus. She asked why I'd let them arrest me instead of stopping it earlier. Because if I'd stopped them early, I said, they'd have learned to play smarter. Clean up the metadata, get a judge's signature next time. This way they went all in, And that made the whole thing federal. She laughed. You really are a bastard, she said, smiling. I shrugged. People like that don't quit when they get scared. They quit when they get caught. If there's a moral here, and I hate morals that feel like sermons, it's this power hates exposure. It can live with quiet resistance. It can survive whispers, but it can't stand the light. Patience sometimes is a strategy. Not the patient who folds, but the patient who lets another person make the mistake. So I'll leave you with a question, and I actually want to hear your take. Would you fight early and risk a safer retreat, or would you let them overplay and risk everything for a cleaner takedown? Tell me why you'd choose one or the other. And if you've ever been in a corner where a system thought it owned you, share what happened.